What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you guys for joining me for another replay battle. Today I've got another 1v1 on the .95 test build. This one is going to pit the Elves of Mirkwood against the Nomads of Khand, which is a very interesting matchup. The Elves of Mirkwood have really nice melee defense values, great shield values as well, so it helps them weather that Khandish Horse Archer Arrow Storm, for example, but they tend to have pretty low numbers, whereas the Khandish infantry tends to be quite numerous. So, and they have a lot of cavalry too, which is hard for the Elves of Mirkwood to deal with because they don't have a whole ton of cav. But we'll get a little bit farther into that later on in the battle. But in any case, the Elves of Mirkwood is being commanded by yours truly. I've got 4 units of Hiri Dirith, I have 3 units of Hiri Dirith, 3 units of Hiri Lang, and 2 units of Elven Archers, Light Elven Archers as well, and a couple units of the Forest Wardens. I believe I have about 3 of them. And now, a lot of these units, as you will note, are hidden, and that is because many of them have the Hide Everywhere trait, except for the Heavy Infantry. I think a lot of their lighter units tend to have that Hide Everywhere trait. Even the Elder Pathfinders do now, so it's really, really viable to use your Heavy Infantry as kind of a distraction, to pull your enemies in, and then launch ambushes on them from multiple points, which is a pretty decent playstyle, and I think one that really suits the Elves of Mirkwood. But out here I have 2 really special units. One is the Hiri Dwarf, who are a double dagger ranger unit, so they have body piercing, but they are quite lightly armored, so they don't do amazing against mainline archers that have a lot of armor or shield value, but I wasn't really expecting a ton of that from the Nomads of Khand. They've got good missile damage as well, about 8 missile damage, and a high melee defense, and since they have the double daggers, they are AP in melee, but they have lower damage. So once they get engaged in melee, if indeed that happens, they make a decent enough little tar pit, but ultimately they will not be able to win the day in melee. They can stall for a fairly high amount of time, but it's very unlikely that they'll be able to win the day. The Hine Dower, however, are a lot better in close quarters. They have long swords, so they've got about 10 damage, I think in like 4 charge, and they are also body piercing, so you kind of have like a nice selection of ranger units here, and I believe they both cost about the same, so it's a choice that you can make that's tailored based on your needs. But in any case, I've got 3 units here of the Hiri Lang as well, and I think that does it for my heavy Elven units, but I've got 2 units of the Elder Pathfinders, who are slightly better against cavalry because they only have their spears. Now, they have a lance that is AP on the charge, but they pull out a different spear once they get into close quarters. So they have a small bonus versus cavalry. I believe it's only about +2, +1 versus wargs, and +1 versus elephants, but it is noticeable. And they've got some pretty decent stats as well besides that. I've also brought 1 unit of the Elder Kingsguard, who are going to be serving as my general's bodyguard unit. And I did them a little bit like knights from the human factions, like the Knights of Illuminats, etc. Now, they have the AP charge that you would expect from Lancers, but they don't have the malice that Lancers get against other cavalry. In fact, they have a slightly higher than average damage versus cavalry, but because they're using spears, their base damage is going to be a little bit lower as well. So it kind of works out. They are a really nice answer to enemy cavalry, which is why I decided to bring them today. But that does it for my army. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at what my opponent is bringing to the battle today. Across the field for me, we have the Nomads of Khand being commanded by Starling, and the Khandish faction that I actually know very little about, as they are one of the few factions that I really haven't had a hand in doing any tweaking or balancing for. All of it was done by Von Mountain. So I won't be able to give you as much detail as I would like on them because I'm still kind of learning all of it myself. But in any case, Starling has brought 2 units of Nurad Retainers, who I think have a little bit less attack. The Nurad units tend to have a little bit less attack, but I believe all of the Khandish cavalry gets a small bonus versus cavalry just baseline. So they should have a +2, I believe, bonus. Over here we have the Brotherhood of the Bow, who have received a significant facelift. They now kind of look like the like double scimitar dervish units from, I think the movie was called Mongol, which follows the life of, I'm pretty sure it was Genghis Khan, but I could be wrong about that. They are an exceptional bow unit. They can do a lot of damage at range, but other than that, I don't know if they have BP or anything like that. Now over here we have the Chieftain's Court. Now, from what I understand, Khand has been broken down into various tribes, all of which have different bonuses, and I believe all of those bonuses come together in the Chieftain's Court. So they receive bonuses from all of the clans, since I suppose they're supposed to be like the pinnacle of different warriors, all brought together by a Khandish warlord to serve as his personal retinue and bodyguard. But other than that, I don't know a ton about them other than that they have 2 HP. Now, out front here, we have a ton of what were previously hidden units. I think the Nomadic Axemen are able to hide everywhere, or just the Nomadic units in general are able to hide, so they're pretty stealthy. But they tend to have lower armor and melee defense values, but as you can see, Starling has brought a ton of them. Hundreds upon hundreds of these Nomads are going to be charging across the field. I mean, he's got the Axemen there out in front, backed up by some Nomadic Warriors to try and hold on to any initial gains in any case that the Nomadic Axemen may make. But I think that's it, except I know he has some more cavalry around here, so hold on a second. Ah, yes, here they are. So he has a unit of Variag Cataphracts, who are a knight unit for the Variags. Although I think they have like a plus 12 bonus versus cavalry, although they don't in this battle because I was going through some of the Condish stats, and I've actually decreased that a little bit. So they should no longer have the plus 12 value that they used to, but yeah, they are still very, very useful at taking down cavalry, and they've got a lot of staying power, of course, as you would expect from a heavily armored Cataphract unit, although naturally they are capped at 1 and limited to a meager 30 men in the unit. Now over here we have the Brotherhood of the Lance. Now the Brotherhood units are no longer 2 HP, so there's going to be other units that fill that role, like the Anvil or like the hard-hitting role, like the Variag Cataphracts. But the Brotherhood of the Lands do kind of embody the style of warfare for whatever clan that they happen to represent. And they are reasonably numerous as well, and I don't think they're quite as expensive, and it looks like they can be brought in greater numbers. So we've got 2 of them here, and yeah, I'm not sure if they'll get 2 of them going into the final release of the patch, but again, I'm not super familiar with the Condish stats, so it is entirely possible they may need to bring that unit in great numbers like that. But I think that does it for Starling's Arms. So let's go ahead, let's start the replay. I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, as the Condish Axemen charge headlong over the field towards my lines, you can see from my order of battle here that I've actually used my Forest Wardens as kind of a buffer to break up their charge. I had Creed do that to me in a previous battle, one I think it was out on UMAD Commander's channel right now, and it was quite useful and used to great effect. So I'm going to try and do something similar with my swordsman here, with my Hiri Dirith. So I'm going to try and break up the Condish charge there, and then countercharge with my own Hiri Dirith. Now over here, I've got my hidden spearmen out in front of my light elven archers. Now what I was hoping was that he would use his cavalry to try and ride them down quickly, but instead Starling is going to charge towards them with large numbers of his infantry. So my spearmen are going to be pretty hard pressed to try and hold that back. But of course they do have, being the Woodland Realm, they do get some significant buffs to melee defense and to their shield value, although they are lacking in armor somewhat. So you can see the rest of the Condish cavalry, instead of going for my archers, they're going to circle around on my flank and try and overwhelm what looks to Starling like a very, very thinly defended flank. I'm sure he expects me to have some hidden units, but at the moment, I don't believe that he has seen them quite yet. Now over here I have my Elder Pathfinders. I'm not moving them because I want him to commit that cavalry, and I want to be able to use my my anti-cavalry bonus against those Nerad retainers, try and sandwich and surprise as much of his cavalry as possible, and then counterattack them with some of my Hiri Lang. So I'm going to pull my Hiri Lang out of there first and move them into towards my Elder Kingsguard. There's a couple reasons I'm doing that. One, so they're in position and ready to go when they need to be there, and two, because they do present a fairly juicy target, I think, for the Condish cavalry. So they may just charge headlong at these guys, and in the event that they do, I will be able to attack them with my Elder Pathfinders. But I made a mistake here in putting these guys a bit too close to my line. So now the arrival of all of this Nomadic Axemen is kind of going to blow the lid off my surprise a little bit earlier than what I had intended them to. Now over on this end, you can see the it looks like I'm going to go for a frontal charge here with my Elder Pathfinders. I can see a lot of those Nomadic Warriors trying to make their way around my flank. And I know that these guys are Lancers, so they've got a pretty decent charge there, which I'm going to be able to use to great effect. You can see those Nomadic Warriors falling by the dozens, but I am going to make a big mistake here and leave my Elder Pathfinders in the fray for a little bit longer than what they need to be. There's a couple reasons I did that. One, I noticed that these guys were about to rout, so I figured they would, so I focused my attention over on this end where the rest of the Condish cavalry is positioning themselves for an attack, and ultimately I end up leaving them in combat way too long and within range of the Condish horse archers. You can see the Brotherhood of the Bow and the Chieftain's Court now focusing down my Elder Pathfinders, and they are beginning to drop, and they're not liking that at all. So now it would be a good time for me to counter-attack with my Hiri Dirith and the rest of my infantry line, rather. But unfortunately, my attention is a little bit elsewhere on the battlefield, trying to deal with the menace here posed by this Condish cavalry. So let's go ahead and let's turn up the speed just a little bit. I've turned around my archers now that I have them more or less where I want them. And I'm going to countercharge here with my 2 units of Pathfinders. One is my Elder Kingsguard, the other is my Pathfinders. And they're into those Narod Retainers they're going to go, and they're going to cut them down pretty quickly. You can see my Elder Pathfinders there haven't actually taken a single casualty to these Narod Retainers. They are quite an anti-cavalry unit, being melee cav, but on the charge like that, with the cav bonus that my Elder Pathfinders have, they're going to do extremely well against those Narod Retainers, and especially backed up here with a unit of Hiri Lang. So let's get in close with the Hiri Lang and take a look at some of the new animations that we can see for the elves in general. They might not be close enough, but we will get a view of it elsewhere. But they do definitely hold their swords differently, and they do some pretty cool like spinning kicks and stuff in close quarters. It's all around a very elven thing that they do. Now over on this end, let's slow things down just a little bit. I can see him coming in from the rear with his Varied Cataphracts and his Brotherhood of the Lance, and that would be a death sentence for my Elder Kingsguard. So I'm going to pull them out of there quickly as possible, and then once they're clear of that, turn my archer's attention on there, turn around, and countercharge with my Elder Kingsguard. So the Brotherhood of the Lance really in a lot of trouble here, and I've got them now pinned between the hammer of my Elder Kingsguard and the anvil of my infantry and my Elder Pathfinders as well. Though my Elder Pathfinders have suffered quite badly in this exchange. You can see they're now down to a meager 20. But let's pop back over to the other side, see some of the Condish cavalry now getting in to my lighter archers. My Hine Dower suffering quite heavily indeed. And over here, some Variag Wind Riders, some light cav. These guys are very fast, as you would expect, and they've got decent enough damage, but I think they're mostly geared at taking on other cavalry. So they're like an anti-cavalry light cav unit with a pretty serious bonus against other cavalrymen. My light elvish archers are really not liking this exchange, although I think it starts to even out a little bit here because being elves, they do have quite high attack values, so they are going to be able to make the Variag Wind Riders pay quite heavily in that exchange. But let's take a look at what's happening on the other side of the battlefield now. You can see my Hiri Deer have gotten themselves locked in close quarters with the Nomadic Warriors, and damn, those guys are going to get chewed out here. The high shield and high melee defense values that the elves of Mirkwood bring to bear against these Nomadic Warriors is going to be the decisive factor in this engagement. You can see them losing very, very heavily. Even over here against my Spearmen, the Condish infantry is really, really suffering. Actually, there's some Nurad Assassins. I totally forgot about them. But yeah, he even threw the Nurad Assassins in against my Hiri Deereth, and looks like they got a decent enough charge off as well. But ultimately, the elves of Mirkwood are going to be able to stand firm and beat back these shifty Eastern Assassins. Over on this side, my Spearmen backed up with my Hiri Lang are doing a number on the Nomadic Warriors, and ultimately this is going to be a loss for the Condish infantry unless he manages to get a little bit of cav support in there, which is indeed what he's trying to do. You can see the Varied Cataphracts there charging down my Light Elven Archers, who are now shaken. We could see a little bit of routing here, but I am kind of chasing them down, trying to keep the pressure on them with my Hiri Lang, who are going to get a nice charge into the rear, as are my Elder Pathfinders, who are supporting them. Now, over on this end, looks like some more Narod Retainers or some survivors from the previous battle are going to be able to get a decent charge into the rear of my Elder Kingsguard, who are in the process of hunting down the Brotherhood of the Lance. Just trying to keep the Condish cavalry on their toes for as long as possible, but even charged in the rear, the Elder Kingsguard have enough HP and enough numbers at this point to stand up to the Narod Retainers and actually cut down quite a few of them. And yeah, another big charge here into the Brotherhood of the Lance. That light cav does not stand a chance against those Elder Kingsguard. But elsewhere on the battlefield, my Hine Dower really suffering quite grievously. The Condish just have enough cavalry to overwhelm my defenses. I think I've done a pretty decent job so far at fending off the majority of his cavalry with my fairly sparse resources, but I am really starting to run out of steam here, as my cavalry and even my infantry at this point have taken some pretty serious losses, although luckily I've managed to keep him busy enough that he hasn't been able to hammer and anvil my main line, and so far my infantry are going to be able to carry the day. So over here we can see the Chieftain's Court and the Brotherhood of the Bow backing up. Some Nomadic Axemen going to be charging through some of the gaps in my lines. A nice little flanking charge here against my Hiri Deereth is going to be a real big problem. And over here you can see he's brought some Nomadic Light Infantry around his lines, which I think I missed in the army comp phase, but yeah, there's a lot of hidden units. In any case, they have been brought to bear against my Hiri Dwarf, who are going to be able to hold for a little while, but against these nomadic warriors now who are coming in on the flank and getting a nice charge there into the flank of these beleaguered rangers, that is going to be a real big problem. So what I'm going to need to do at this point is try and get these guys out of combat and once again firing against some of these lighter units like the Brotherhood of the Bow and trying to shave off some of the HP from the elite units like the Chieftain's Court. But yeah, in order to relieve my rangers, who have taken some pretty severe losses at this point, I am going to pull them out, and I'm going to bring up a unit of Forest Wardens who are fresh from defeating the Connish infantry on the front line. So you can see my rangers retreat now, and at the same time, Forest Wardens coming in here to plug that gap and hold down those nomadic light infantry and allow these archer units, these very powerful ranger units, to begin to put some pressure on either the Connish infantry or the cavalry over on this end, especially the Brotherhood of the Bow out there, or some of the Connish cavalry that is lurking now in my back lines. Let's see what we got over here. So my Elder Kingsguard still standing, surprisingly enough. Only about 7 of them left at this point, and a lot of the Connish cavalry has really begun to run out of steam here as well. So far, my efforts have definitely borne fruit, and I've managed to deal with a lot of the nomads who have been causing me so many problems here in my backlines. Now it looks like the Brotherhood of the Bow focusing down the rear of my Hiri Dirith while they were busy dealing with the Neuron assassins. I'm taking some fairly light losses, although with that constant arrow fire, it is going to be a really big thorn in my side. So I've now turned them around, or I should be turning them around in any case, and getting that shield bonus working for them, but unfortunately I don't think I saw it. This battle got a little bit chaotic. So now that I've beaten back most of the Connish infantry, I am going to be able to swing around with the rest of my Elvish infantry and try and hold down what remains of the Connish on my right flank, surround them, destroy them, and take the day here. But I do still have some problems. I got a unit of nomadic light infantry that kind of came out of nowhere, and they are going to be able to get a nice rear charge into the back of my Forest Wardens. Though luckily these guys have turned themselves around, so that's not going to do quite as much damage as it may have otherwise done. So let's go ahead and let's kick things up to normal speed. A nice hammer and anvil charge here into the rear of my Forest Wardens by the Variag Cataphracts. Going to be a real big problem. Now, over on this end, I can see the Variags are coming for my Hiri Dirith at this point, but I don't have a ton of answers to them. Most of my Elder Cavalry has been cut down in one way or another, either by the constant missile harassment or by the superior Connish cavalry. But over here, I am going to manage to trap the Variag Cataphracts, come in from the rear with my Hiri Lang, pin them in place with my Hiri Dirith, and hopefully cut down a few of them in that retreat. But yeah, this is something you can see here. I actually managed to take down 1 or 2 of his Cataphracts, in fact, and unfortunately that charge went into my Hiri Dwath, but the cavalry is no longer invincible. Units like this, like the Variag Cataphracts, are a little bit better at kind of just diving into infantry formations because they are multiple HP and heavily armored knight units, but that is kind of balanced out somewhat by the fact that they are very rare and very expensive as well. And over here, my Hiri Dirith suffering quite grievously at the hands of this Brotherhood of the Bow. Rather, I've managed to put a little bit of fire into them with my Hiri Dwath, and my attention is just being divided in so many different places by the really strong cavalry micro of Starling. But so far, the Variag Cataphracts have been kind of boxed in here and have really taken some severe losses. They're now down to a meager 5. They're going to try and retreat through my Hiri Dirith, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get another kill off on them, unfortunately. So those Cataphracts are going to manage to emerge, although not unscathed. They have definitely lost about 2/3 of their remaining army. And now a lot of my poor Elven units are really being shot down by the Brotherhood of the Bow. At this point in the game, I believe that Horse Archers had a lot more ammunition than what they're going to have right now. After this, I think I completed a pretty decent overhaul of the armor, not the armor, the ammunition of archers in general, Horse Archers included. So they've gone down, I think, by about 12 volleys. So that's pretty big. But in any case, back to the replay, I've managed to rout a significant number of the remaining standing forces of Khan, these nomadic axemen, now fleeing for the hills, and I've got my Hiri Lang over here pursuing them. Now, what I should be doing, unfortunately, I don't think I saw the opportunity. I could have charged them right there into the Brotherhood of the Bow, and that would have been the end of that bow unit, because usually Archer Cavalry is quite vulnerable in melee. They tend to lose a lot of their damage, and they have very little charge. In fact, all Archer mounted cavalry units have 1 charge as the standard. So unfortunately, my micro not on point there, or I was a little bit busy elsewhere and I didn't see the opportunity that presented itself to me. But the Chieftain's Court gonna fire, be constantly firing, cover the retreat of the Brotherhood of the Bow. And they're really destroying my poor Hiri Lang here, who are extremely vulnerable to that kind of warfare. So I'm going to try and consolidate my forces. At this point, I'm really spread out all over the field, trying to deal with the constant harassment of the Khandish cataphracts. Now, this was definitely an irritation for me, having no cavalry of my own and very few archers to try and deal with these Khandish cataphracts, who are very well armored in any case, and I wouldn't say immune to arrows. You can see a few of them dying to my elven arrows, but still very resistant to them. But yeah, the Khandish infantry has been routed at this point, and I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm feeling like I got this. I've definitely got the numbers. If you look at the difference here, there's about 2% difference, but I think a lot of that is counting the routing units, and there's not really a whole lot left for Khan at this point. You see a unit of my Hiri Dirith here, quite far afield. Unit of Brotherhood of the Lance, very depleted unit, going to try and get into the rear of them, and it's going to do a fair amount of damage to them, but I'm going to ultimately turn around and have them defend themselves, and the Brotherhood of the Lance are going to be caught at unawares, and I think 1 or 2 of them die in that exchange. Now I'm going to move in with the rest of my army. Maybe not the best idea to move out of the forest, but honestly, I'm just trying to consolidate my forces, keep everything together, and try and get the Khandish units to take engagements that aren't necessarily in their favor. Now, I'm leaving my archers a little bit open, but that's because I kind of want to trap them. I want to present a potential target for the cavalry to come in there against, and then use my spearmen to cut them down. Now, I've got 1 unit of the Varied Cataphracts here, getting charged down by my spearmen, and that's going to be the end of the Varied Cataphracts and that very powerful knight unit. Over here, the Brotherhood of the Bow, getting a decent enough charge into my Hiri Dirith, killing like 3 or so of them. That's not so bad, but my archers are going to have the opportunity here to fire at the Brotherhood of the Bow and hopefully cut down a few of them. And in that exchange, it looks like they paid with it for about 4 or 5 of their remaining cavalry, which the Khandish can't really afford to be losing at this point. But the real threat at this point is the Chieftain's Court, and I think that's because they have higher charge damage than is normal for a horse archer unit, and that is something that I actually mean to change. Based on kind of some of the things I noticed in this battle, they function a lot like a knight unit that also has a bow, and I think it's a little bit too much for them to have the charge bonuses that they have. So that is something that you may see change in the future. So a big charge here into my Hiri Dirith. Doesn't look like they managed to kill any of them, though, since they were able to turn around and not take it from behind. But now we've got that Chieftain Court just kind of diving in and out here, and I'm just not able to pin down the Brotherhood of the Bow. Yeah, and unfortunately they're quite elite, so I'm not able to rout them either because they don't stay in close quarters long enough. Over here we have the Brotherhood of the Lance, though, with those lances doing a ton of work against my infantry, which is exactly what those lancers are supposed to be able to do. And what I could be doing at this point is trying to shoot them down, but honestly, I really want to shoot those Chieftain's Court. I don't think I have a ton of ammunition left at this point, so my biggest priority is definitely taking down the Chieftain's Court if at all possible. So now, getting a bit tired here of being constantly cycle charged, I am going to kind of circle the wagons a little bit and begin to bring all of my units inside a protective circle of my infantry. Yeah, big charge there on the flank from the Brotherhood of the Lance, going to do a lot of damage to my Hiri Dirith. And unfortunately, I'm just not having a whole lot of luck in cutting down these nomads. So those Brotherhood of the Lance have survived a lot longer than I think they should have. And I think this definitely should have been my priority in this battle, is dealing with the Lance unit. But I definitely had my sights set on the Chieftain's Court as an HP unit with still a significant number of standing forces available. So big charge here into a ton of my infantry and my spearmen, which is actually going to do a lot of damage to my Hiri Dirith and my spearmen as well. Charge from the rear here by the Brotherhood of the Lance. You can see this is just an irritant. Like a few cavalry like this really doing a lot of damage, but I think mostly it's the Brotherhood of the Lance and perhaps a fairly overtuned unit of the Chieftain's Court, which I think is going to get changed pretty quickly once I figure out exactly what was causing some of the issues that I was seeing here. Yeah, but let's go ahead. Let's kick that up to 6 times. You can see just the constant cycle charging here and me counter-charging, trying to deal as much damage to these guys as possible. Another charge from the rear by the Brotherhood of the Bow has really whittled down my forces. Yeah, another nice set of charges there by the Chieftain's Court in tandem with the remaining Brotherhood of the Bow. But I think the Brotherhood of the Bow have been cut down at this point, so now it's just going to be a straight fight here between the Spearmen and the Chieftain's Court. And when I say stat irregularities, this is kind of what I mean. You can see there's a lot of Spearmen there who just weren't able to do a ton of damage to a Horse Archer unit in close quarters. I think that is something that, yeah, I definitely want to change in the future. But in any case, it was a really, really close game. We're now down, I think, to like 98 to 99. Yeah, I'm definitely down by 1% at this point. 7 Chieftain's Court here fighting against 10 Hiri Dirith and 4 Spear Wardens. somehow holding their own. You can see that it's flashing between victory and defeat. Let's see what happens. They're down to 4. My Forest Warden's still hanging on, but my Hiri Deerth have definitely been cut down. Yeah, charge from the rear there from that horseman. This has really been a destructive battle so far. Yeah, most of my Hiri Deerth have been cut down at this point, and all of my Forest Wardens but 1 have been destroyed. So let's see what happens here. Forest Warden's just kind of sitting there, not really doing a whole lot. There we go. So now the Chieftain's Court are going to pull out. I'm going to pursue with my few remaining infantrymen. They're going to countercharge, kill both of them pretty quickly. One of the horsemen is going to go down. It's just the banner carrier here, and that is going to be it. You are looking at the lone survivor of my entire elven army. Look at him. That's definitely going in the thumbnail. Look at that. One victorious warrior. But when I say stat irregularities, I mean that a horse archer unit should probably not be able to go toe-to-toe with spearmen and infantry for that length of time. So if that is something that you guys are concerned about, and that's why I've brought it up several times, because I know people get really concerned about kind of the performance of units that they see in these videos. Now, the horse archers will probably end up getting toned down just a little bit, but otherwise, I mean, it was a pretty balanced battle between numbers and quality. Starling did really well and handled the elves, I think, as best as he could. Cav Micro definitely on points, though I was able to isolate some of his infantry, which I think ended up winning me the battle. I was able to just keep his cav occupied for such an extended period of time that he wasn't able to get the hammer and anvil strikes that would have won him this game pretty handily. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this 1v1, and I will have another one coming out pretty shortly, but I do want to focus on some of our Let's Play series. So coming up next, we're going to have the finale of our Warhammer 2 series, and then we can move on to other Warhammer 2 campaigns as the Tomb Kings are rapidly approaching. Let's see, other than that, I would like to do some more 4th Age, and I've got my Elves of Lorien working again as well, so maybe we'll start to bring that series back in the near future. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I hope you guys enjoyed this battle, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye!